Yeah, so the context is that we just find that if you build a recommender out of the box and you use collaborative-based models or you use content-based recommenders, the model is not that important because you have an algorithm that deals with how you do the filtering. So the accuracy and recall rates that you normally would look at in models or any of your L1 and L2 and everything in the machine learning world is not as important as just looking at how offers are being presented at a ratio. So that means that the mechanisms are pretty well known. What we are looking at is saying that once you've gone through that cycle and you've already implemented a number of different recommenders, or you want to start from scratch with no data, you have got tooling available. And the model that we're trying to present here, or the approach, is saying that you should not be that concerned with your accuracy if your engagement is more dynamic. If your engagement is very static and you've got a pretty well-known, well-defined target, and you know that you are selling something that has been sold many times before, and you've got a great historical view, then your priors take on a very different shape. And then normal modeling and various types of recommenders would work well. This context is saying that the simulation helps you to understand the concept, and then you use additional checks once it's in production through your dashboarding stage one to track what those movements are that you are expecting and not expecting. So that means the analyst is still important in interpreting the results. And that's the construct.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Jay. Sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, my headphones. Just in terms of when you're in production then, and say you want to make like a kind of a significant change, would you go back to simulation then? Would you ever go back, or just
I don't think you ever stop simulating, to be honest, because what happens is that if you think of it, the deliberately designed world versus the dynamically designed world. The deliberately designed world works off the notion that a bunch of people stand around, take their own experiences in the context of their clients into account, take some data maybe for a model that they're going to be training and then putting it into production, and then look at it again a month later or a year later or months later. That is not as competitive as you knowing that things are changing all the time. So if you had to think of just seasonal changes, public holidays, travel time, and other things that normally affect human behavior, means that you're going to keep on trying to find better ways to make recommendations work really well for that target. So the simulation exercise often is running in parallel. Because once you have something in production, and let's say that you've got an existing set of parameters in production that you've configured and a set of models that you know that work well, and you know that it's generating good revenue for you, you probably still will create a control group that you are going to test alternative options to keep on getting better at this thing. And I think that's the big notion here, is that it is not about freezing the world. It's not about frozen knowledge. It's about a moving target. It's about the fact that you keep on learning more and more about the engagements that you have with the people that you are engaging with. And you want to take those things that you learn and do something about them without having to go through this heavy productionization process. So you might end up, if you think about scaling it horizontally, we've got an exercise with the client now where you've got, because you can scale that client pulse responder horizontally, you've got 12 in production. One of the things that we will talk about in future sessions is the thing around how you would now deal with experimentation selection. So you want to say that, let's say that you're a big company and you want to sell a type of product just to your own employees to test a certain hypothesis. You should be able to set up an experiment, target just say your employees, or target just a certain segment or just a certain geography. And every time that anybody in that target community come in to whatever the interface is that is creating the interface for the recommender, it will then switch to that experiment that you're running. And if that delivers a result that you are happy with, you can then deploy it across everything that you've already got in production. So that means that you might always have in parallel one or a number of your recommenders, whatever the percentage of recommenders are that you want to test, that will be experimentation ready. Or you could be permanently in experimentation mode where you can turn it on and off depending on how you want to route. And maybe Eric can talk to that as to how that we will have a number of different mechanisms that you can use to then route incoming messages, whatever those might be, without the data scientists or the technologists having to do any work. That's the big trick here. And that's that normally this will take an enormous amount of technical work to get this done. And if the tooling is in place, then it makes it so much easier for you.